Stephen's here with business, and he's starting, for once, some good news for the French government on its budget. This makes a change.
I just chose an optimistic note for you, Stuart, to start
I'm glad.
The French Finance Minister, Michel Sapin, has said that next year's budget deficit will be lower than had been expected. Instead of 4.3% of GDP, it'll be 4.1%. Now, that's thanks to extra measures the government announced in October, which include lower contribution to the EU budget, lower interest payments on its debt, and new revenue from a crackdown on tax evasion, all of that adding up to 3.6 billion euros. Now, this news will also help France's budget battle with the European Commission, which wants the country to cut its deficit further by next March. Michel Sapin also confirmed President Hollande's promise that there'll be no new tax increases before the next presidential election in 2017.
It comes as well, doesn't it, as relations between business leaders and the French government really started to hot up.
Which has been one of the big themes, I suppose, really of this year that we've had. Now, all of this week, small business owners are staging protests here in France over what they say are unsustainable levels of tax and red tape. At the same time, talks are ongoing with employers' groups over the government's so-called Responsibility Pact, which gives companies tax cuts in exchange for creating jobs. Now, the Economy Minister, Emmanuel Macron, caused controversy when he said that business groups are dragging their heels when it comes to committing to employment targets. Here's Catherine Viette with more.
The war of words between Pierre Gattaz and Emmanuel Macron is heating up. While the head of MEDEF is calling for more tax breaks, the Economy Minister says businesses must first start creating new jobs.
In the Responsibility Pact, there is the word responsibility. Now, very few business sector agreements were signed. Today, it's a failure.
The government says MEDEF, the country's employer federation, has not lived up to its side of the bargain. According to the terms of the Responsibility Pact, a plan proposed by President François Hollande last year to jumpstart the economy, French businesses would receive 40 billion euros in tax breaks over 3 years. In exchange, those businesses would create hundreds of new jobs. But despite negotiations with many professional sectors, only 2 agreements have been signed. The French Prime Minister says that's not nearly enough.
When the nation, through Parliament, agrees and gives its approval to a proposal to make 40 billion euros available to businesses, for competitiveness, to lower taxes and lower costs, everyone has to live up to their responsibilities. I'm saying this in particular to the leaders of the business community. A certain number of proposals, of provocations today, are not worthy of this responsibility.
Business owners, angered over what they say is too much red tape, protested on Monday, appealing to the government to loosen up the labor market.
Let's move on now with a look at what's happening on the markets. And here in Europe, it's a pretty flat start to the days. Trading oil and gas shares up again today. This is oil prices appear to be stabilising at around $71 a barrel. You can see London's FTSE 100 just dipping into the red there. The big faller is Royal Mail, down over 2.5%. That after the regulator there ruled that its postal service wasn't under threat from competition. Now, over in Asia, Japan's Nikkei hit a new 7-year high in trading before closing up 0.3%. That's mainly thanks to the falling value of the yen, helping exporters there. Pretty mixed picture across the rest of the Asian markets, though.
Going to talk corruption now. Apparently it's on the rise in Turkey, in China, and also other emerging economies.
Yeah, this is the result of the annual audit of corruption perceptions from the Transparency International group. Turkey saw the biggest fall in its rankings, which looks at misconduct in governments, police, court services and bureaucracy. The Transparency International is also this year highlighting the role that financial institutions are playing in allowing corruption to develop.
Major economies are responsible for the export of bribery. What we've watched as a trend since the financial crisis is the way to which no amount of money laundering through the financial centers has really stopped. So we still find the deposits of crime and corruption in banks in London and in the US and other key financial centers. And it's very critical that those banks stop the practice and that the countries clamp down on the illicit flow of finance into the northern economies.
Now, finally, rather a well-known Russian brand has gone through a bit of a major image overhaul, or they're trying to anyway, aren't they?
This is an interesting story. The word Kalashnikov is associated mainly with violence because, of course, of the gun that bears its name. But the company that makes them is trying to soften its image. This in the wake of US sanctions that have, of course, hit its business quite badly. Imports of Kalashnikovs are banned now in the US. So they produced this new marketing push. This video is part of it, in fact. They're rebranding Kalashnikov as a weapon of peace. The video takes through various, what they describe as freedom struggles, which the Kalashnikov was used in. The video ends with the phrase, Kalashnikov promoting peace and calm. They're trying to push the sale of these weapons in Asia now, as sales in the US have been interrupted. But a pretty interesting rebranding effort for that company.
Effort, yeah. I'm not sure it works for me.
No, I'm not sure personally it works for me either, but
no.
Then I don't usually in the market for buying weapons, so perhaps
Yes.
we're the wrong audience.
Only on a Friday when you're not here. Stephen Carroll with Business.